Okay, good evening, Normandy, France. Live from LZ Bunker. This is Veterans Live Show. I'm your host, Ronnie Umbris. I served with the 101st Airborne Division in Vietnam from December 67 to December 68. This week is the 77th anniversary of the Invasion of Normandy, so we'll be having John D. Long on the show. John is the Education Director of the National D-Day Memorial in Bedford, Virginia. The National D-Day Memorial is an amazing place to pay respects to those who fought and died in Operation Overlord, as well as all of us other operations that defeated the enemy and gave us freedoms we enjoy today. Okay, here's our guest, Director of Education of National D-Day Memorial, John D. Long. Welcome, John.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Welcome into the bunker.
Absolutely.
So let's start by telling our audience about D-Day in general, and maybe you could throw some lesser-known facts in there as well.
Absolutely. D-Day, of course, was the largest land, sea, air operation for the Allies in World War II. The goal was to get onto the beaches of Normandy, create a beachhead through which we can build up enough forces to push on, liberating France and on into Germany. So the goal was not to just get some men on the beaches. It was to win the war. And this was the path to victory. We weren't going to win the war on June 6, 1944. It's going to take 11 more months after that. But we now can see a way to defeat Nazi Germany after D-Day. And, of course, it's just one day out of a war that the United States fights for 4 years. Britain, Canada, France fight for 6 years. But in that one day, there's so much drama, so many stories, so much heroism, from the men crossing the beach to the paratroopers and the glidermen landing behind the beaches at places like Saint-Mary-Glisse.
You know, it's amazing that a lot of people don't, take into consideration that the war was 2 years on before we got involved with it.
Oh, it was, absolutely.
Yeah, people don't go from to Pearl Harbor.
The British were already planning the invasion while the U.S. was still at peace.
Ah, really? Interesting. Okay. All right, so tell us about how the D-Day National D-Day Memorial came to be.
Well, the story begins with a D-Day veteran, John Robert Slaughter, Bob Slaughter, from Roanoke, Virginia, which happens to be my hometown as well. He came back from World War II and was one of these veterans that never talked about it. He didn't share stories. He didn't tell his kids much about it other than I was in the Army. But as he got older, became concerned that his buddies who had died on the beaches of Normandy were being forgotten. And so in his retirement years, he got with some of his like-minded veterans and began a foundation to put a memorial somewhere in the United States to what happened on June 6, 1944.
Interesting that it became in Virginia because Virginia has such a rich history from the colonies and forward, and then the Civil War, and then everything after, and being so close to Washington, that tremendous. It's a good spot to have it. It really is. I'm happy.
Some of the Virginia units, like the 116th Regiment, the 29th Division, trace their heritage back to the even before the Revolutionary War, the French and Indian War.
Right. Yeah.
There is a lot of history here. And we end up in Bedford, Virginia, of all places, for a simple reason. Bedford had the highest per capita losses of any community in the United States on D-Day itself. 20 men from Bedford died probably in the first hour of the invasion on June 6th. And that's coming from a very small community. And so Bedford has never forgotten their sacrifices on D-Day. And when the idea for a national memorial to a great international event, presented itself, Bedford was very quick to offer this land on which we sit and support, and it's really the right place for it.
Okay, so and when was the idea sort of thought about till fruition?
It's actually our 20th anniversary this Sunday. We opened officially on June 6, 2001. President Bush came to dedicate the memorial, and in attendance were somewhere around 1,200 D-Day and Normandy veterans, and probably easily as many World War II veterans. in attendance. Of course, in recent years, the World War II veterans who still survive, it's a lot harder for them to get out. So
Of course, yeah.
our attendance dwindles. But even so, I can tell you if there is a D-Day veteran on our site, he or she is treated like a rock star.
They're all over 95 years old.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, how can you not be outstanding for that? Okay. We have some photos here from the memorial. Video. Matt is going to put them up. Video. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's do a video that you brought in. Thank you. Let's go to that video right away. Wow, that's outstanding. Wow, that was unbelievable. Quite. Wow.
It's a beautiful sight, really, especially this time of year.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've been to Normandy several times, and actually, some of the bunkers are actually covered with sand by now, or filled with sand, and from the wind blowing, and to be on the cliffs, not to even point the hawk, but obviously that was a tremendous operation by the Rangers, but just to be there and to realize how many what was the total of killed the first day? 90,000.
Currently, we've identified 2,502 American fatalities just for June 6th, and 1,913 allies.
Oh, okay. Wow. That was well, yeah, I guess the whole thing with the airborne operations and things like that. We're going to go to some photos now, okay?
Excellent.
Okay, so have him explain it.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, that piece is called Valor, Fidelity, Sacrifice. And as you can tell, it shows a man crossing the beach, dragging a wounded comrade. You can't see in this picture because of the angle, but a lot of people will notice on the hand of the upper figure is a wedding ring. And the sculptor, who was a man named Jim Brothers from Kansas, very deliberately put that little detail in as a reminder that these men on the beaches or jumping out of the airplanes had a lot at stake. They had their own commitments at home and a future they wanted to return to, and many of them never got the chance.
Yes, yeah. That goes never saw that or heard of that particular aspect in ever. Excellent point. Yeah, and we're gonna. There you go. Here's the next one.
This was obviously in the fall of the year when the site is beautiful as well. And this piece is called Homage. It's our tribute to the Bedford boys, those 20 men from Bedford who gave their lives on D-Day, 19 of them from one company. And this, of course, shows a soldier paying his own tribute to a fallen comrade. The battle cross is there in front of him, the rifle stuck into the ground with a helmet on top. So it's our tribute and a soldier paying tribute as well.
There you go. Oh, here we go. Is that the next picture? Yeah.
This is at the beach scene, and you saw in the video a minute ago. During the day, there are water effects that simulate bullets hitting the water. These two men have made it to the beach and are trying to cross it. And you notice on the helmets of the back figure there, he's a medic. And I always give a great deal of honor to the medics of any battle, but especially D-Day, because they were just overwhelmed by the wounded and were there in a situation where they had to actually evacuate the wounded toward the guns, not back, because behind them, of course, is the English Channel.
Yeah, that was wow. You're right. That's yeah, they did. Medic Joe Smith in Vietnam was always active, and what a tremendous guy. And were they armed in World War II?
They could carry a sidearm, and many of them did.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Not typically anything more than that. I'm sure a few cheated and
Yeah,
grabbed one, but for the most part, they were non-combatants and supposed to be disarmed.
Correct. Yes. Okay. Next photo.
This is the back of a sculpture that is an exact replica of a World War I memorial in France, Trevier, France. And if we could rotate it, you would see that her face has been torn away by a shell. The original in France was hit by artillery a few days after D-Day, and the people of the village decided just to stand the original back up in that state as a tribute not just to World War I, but to World War II as well, and to the fragility of peace. And it is still there in Trevier. Our copy is here in Bedford.
Next photo, please.
This is called The Final Tribute. It's a sculpture by Matt Kirby. And once again, the Fallen Soldier Battle Cross, where men in the Second World War would be buried by their buddies after the battle in shallow grave and marked with their helmet, their rifle, and their dog tags. And that's a very poignant reminder, of course, of the loss of any comrade. And the modern military doesn't usually have to bury a man in that fashion anymore, but you still see that symbolism carried through military funerals today.
Quite interesting to see the bugle there.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That was during one of our ceremonies. I believe it's either the Virginia Tech Corps of Cadets or the VMI Corps of Cadets down there in the plaza below. And
on the right side. Yeah, right. I see him down there.
Yeah,
okay.
They come in here to the freshman classes to show them what had happened on D-Day.
That's great. Really. Wow. Okay, here we go. Rangers.
This represents the Rangers climbing Pointe du Hoc. The sculptor, again, is Jim Brothers, actually had a bigger vision when you think of this symbolically as the World War II generation climbing its way to victory, but it's inspired by the Rangers, who, of course, had the impossible job of landing on the beach below the cliffs, crossing the beach, and then scaling that 100-foot cliff under enemy fire. And many people, when that job was given to the 2nd and the 5th Rangers, thought it was an impossible one, going to be a bloodbath. And yet within 7 minutes of landing on the beach, there were Americans at the top of that cliff. They took care of the German guns they found. They'd been moved back away from the gun emplacements, but they took care of them and then held those cliffs for 2 days before they were reinforced. It's another one of the amazing stories of D-Day.
Yeah, absolutely right. That's crazy. Wow, what heroic times. Unbelievable. All right, next photograph. Here you go. Last photo.
Yeah, this is our Necrology Project, which records the names on these plaques of every Allied soldier, sailor, airman, Coast Guardsman who died on D-Day itself.
Well, tell us about the Necrology Project.
The Necrology Project actually predates the opening of the memorial. It's been going on now for 21, 22 years. And the goal was that we would find the names of every man who died on D-Day and preserve them, because at that point, no one could even tell you how many men died on D-Day. And, you know, anyone who was related to one of them would say Uncle Joe or Granddad died on D-Day, but there was no comprehensive list. And so researchers began in about the year 2000 to go through military records, cemetery rosters, headstone applications, obituaries, everything, every source they could find, and uncovered thousands of names, but also uncovered a lot of frustration because, as I often explain to people, the goal of the military in 1944 was to win the war. It wasn't to keep absolutely perfect records that keep historians happy in the future. And
Right.
so very
Exactly.
often, you know, a man, well, let's say a body washes ashore the week after D-Day. Did he die on D-Day? Did he die on December 7th, 8th? No one could know. And or a paratrooper is found after the battle, but no way of establishing a firm death date. And so sometimes it's guesswork. Sometimes it's simply the day the remains were recovered. And sometimes there are contradictions. And so we have spent, let's say, over 20 years now trying to sort through all that and still finding names. We're not finished yet. And we know that we will never have them all because, again, there's a lot of uncertainty. But we are going to do our best and continue combing through these records. And in fact, just this year on Memorial Day, we officially added 2 names. This is one of them. It's a Navy ensign by the name of Frederick Nye Moses, went by his middle name Nye. And Nye Moses from California was in command of a landing craft tank, LCT 540, that came into Omaha Beach in the early hours. At that time, it was the largest craft that had gotten near the beach. Everything else were the small Higgins boats. And that made it a perfect target. And so the Germans opened up on LCT 540. Nye Moses was hit. His leg was pretty much severed by an artillery shell. But even as he was dying, he was giving orders to his men to continue on to the beach. And 540 did it. The skipper didn't live to see it happen, but his crew carried out their mission, unloaded artillery pieces that were needed, and it's most of the crew survived, but the captain or the ensign in command, Nye Moses, was killed. And in the confusion, his death date was just listed improperly. We uncovered some oral histories and his own Silver Star citation, which says clearly he died on D-Day. And with that evidence now, we've added his name to the wall.
That's great. How do you get this information so late? You do some DNA things now, or what?
Oh, they actually are doing
Recovering
DNA.
bodies.
They're doing
Bodies
DNA
being
evidence.
recovered.
Yes. In fact, we had a visitor just last week, the nephew of a pilot who was killed on D-Day. And that pilot, William McGowan, has only recently been identified. Archaeological remains were found and DNA tests done on the family. And Lieutenant McGowan will be buried in Normandy American Cemetery probably next summer. It's all been delayed by COVID, of course, but he may well be the last D-Day fatality to be buried in that cemetery.
Yeah, I've been there. It's quite unbelievable scene.
Isn't it? Mm-hmm.
That is a fantastic place. I've been there a few times actually to see the bunkers, and some of them are even covered with sand somewhere down the coastline. There, the sand over the time is blown in and filled them up, or they were filled, whatever. And what happened to all the artillery pieces that were there? So even though some are still there, the German ones.
The German ones.
Yeah.
Well, they were captured. The ones that weren't destroyed, and of course they wanted to take them to fights. Many of them were, the melted by thermite grenades.
Right.
but a lot of them did survive and became war trophies. They're still all through France. There may be some in the United States. I've never run across some. I've seen World War I German guns here, but they're again a great reminder of the victory that was won.
We have another guy.
Here we go. And this gentleman.
This is our other addition to the necrology wall. This is Captain Clarence Tolle, Tolle, and he was in the 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 82nd Airborne, jumped on D-Day, survived the jump, found himself separated from most of his units, so he did what he was trained to do. He cobbled together as many other paratroopers as he could find and went about trying to achieve their objective. And about noon on D-Day, he was leading this sort of, cobbled together squad of men against a German stronghold. He was hit by machine gun fire and killed. And once again, the records are just confused. His death date was listed improperly, but we found oral histories that clearly point to his death on D-Day. And so he has been not only added to our memorial wall, but his death date has been changed by the Normandy American Cemetery as well.
D-Day +1 to me doesn't matter. They were all heroes and died in the same.
It does, and we were very careful to point that out.
Exactly.
The men who died on June 6th are any more heroic than the ones who died on June 7th or 8th. But practical matter, we only had so much wall. We couldn't make it 10 miles long.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
We are very careful to point out the dying didn't stop on June 6th. There were many others to come.
Okay, how far does this necrology project go? I mean,
we will keep going, until it's easy to say until we've looked at every record, but it's hard to say how many records there are. But we keep digging. People send us names, all the time, and we research them. Sometimes we realize this person, didn't die on D-Day. Maybe it's later in the month, but other times, let's say we've been able to definitely identify another casualty and add him to the wall.
I'm gonna go to do the video.
We're working on several names now, so there may be more.
Yeah.
In the future.
Okay, we're gonna run to a video now. 1 second, John.
Okay.
Yeah, this is about I did a reenactment jump about 4 or 5 years ago, and one of the guys, they had international jump, and one of the guys from Sweden, I believe, was sort of like, you're supposed to step out the door of the aircraft, the C-47, and he sort of like went way back and tried to push himself out with both hands, slipped, hit his butt, hit his head, bent the other way, hit his ribs, and here's what happened next. Hi, this is Ronnie Embris, author of Fallen Never Forgotten, Vietnam Memorials in the USA. I don't know if you've ever heard of, seen, or taken part in a bad exit from an airplane or a bad landing in a parachute jump, but have I got one for you. I was in Normandy, France on D-Day in 2015 for a reenactment jump. The city was filled with people, festivals, carnivals, many visitors, people from England bringing jeeps in and World War II apparatus and vehicles and weapons. 101st Airborne and the 82nd Airborne took part in the jumps, and the people in Normandy just love the paratroopers then and now. About the parachute jump, the bad exit and bad landing. The morning of the jump, we did a brief exit from a mock-up airplane, landings, rollings, falling, anything we had to do, relearning about our emergency landings, high tension wires, rooftops, trees, water, things like that. So from there, we drove about 50 miles up to the coast and boarded up C-47s. There was 2 planes, 2 sticks in each plane. That's about 10 jumpers on each side of the plane. As the first stick went out, an elderly gentleman from Sweden jumped a little far back, hit his butt on the floor of the plane, then fell one way, hit his head, and then back this way and hit his ribs. We didn't know all that till later. Oh, yeah. Good trip. I'll come down over there, right there by the stump. Landed right in between all those little trees. We'll go here, the guy's stumped. We came down, and I was looking around, seeing rooftops, trees, backyards,
high tension wires, swimming pools, thinking of all the landings I had to get ready for. So as I landed, thankfully in a backyard, the trees were cut low, about 4 feet high, with just some little saplings raising up over them. I looked up and I saw another jumper about 40 yards away. I yelled to him, "Hey, buddy, we made it, hallelujah." And I started to take off my chute. As I did, I looked up again. He hadn't moved. I ran over, and the man was unconscious. Yeah, he was just fine. He was unconscious. I started to yell, "Medic, medic," but no one came. Fortunately, we had the international calling plan, and I called my son Matthew, and he got in touch with the jump master. He called the medics, and the ETMs came, the medics came, the police came, the firemen came. It was amazing. The only problem we had is that we needed a doctor who spoke both Swedish and French. Fortunately, the man did recover. He had a concussion and some broken ribs, but he's fine now and back in Sweden. And thanks again for supporting my book, Fallen, Never Forgotten, Vietnam Memorials in the USA, a tribute to the men who never came home from Vietnam.
Okay, here's a little jump episode, huh?
Great story.
Really, it was the craziest thing. I don't know. There's not too many things in real life war that I experienced that were crazier than that. And well, maybe a few, obviously, but yeah, I mean to watch him go out of the plane and then realize it's the same guy who misjumped and boy, amazing. I'm so happy that he was safe. You know what I mean? And we had a language barrier going on, and we had where were we? You know, nobody knew where you were. You were in some backyard somewhere, but things came out pretty good, and I'm glad the guy made it home and we recovered. We found out later on through that. So, okay, we're going to go to the Q&A now. Questions and answers. Shoot, let's go to the first. Okay. Kilo 19. Melbourne sunk another ship earlier in her career from running. Sunk another ship earlier in her career from running into it. Yes, that's interesting. The Melbourne was a tough ship. Should have been. My goodness gracious. Okay, thank you for telling us that, Kilo. Next question. Hey, checking in Maryland. Thank you, Andrew Stavera. Appreciate that. Thanks for watching. Mike Pickle, D, first to the 502nd Infantry, 101st Airborne Division, Screaming Eagles all the way. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for stopping in. Bill Reese, my father was 19 when he landed on Omaha Beach in the third wave. His unit, the 119th, teamed up with Patton. Yes, thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. And your dad. Next, Kilo 19. His grandpapa was in the 101st during World War II as a signalman. Unfortunately, he passed away before I got older and never really got to talk about his experiences. It's interesting, Kilo, because a lot of guys from World War II didn't talk about their experiences. So even though some of them still may be here, thank you for that, Kilo. Next, Rini C. God bless those heroes who sacrificed their lives for freedom. R.I.P. D-Day veterans. Amen to that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Kilo, excellent video. Oh, appreciate that, Kilo. That's real life stuff, man. Yes, I guess that's the best stuff, right? You never know what's going to happen. Next one. The level on that detail of these statues is amazing. Talk about that.
The sculptor did extensive research into equipment, the weapons, the clothing, even down to if you pay attention to the Rangers that we showed, the eyelets of their boots are the ones that a Ranger would use to climb rope, not the ones with the hooks, because that would get caught on the rope. So he really did an amazing job. Jim Brothers is no longer with us, but his legacy lives on here with his sculpture.
Amen to that. Thank you, Kilo. Next. What you mean acreage dry? How big is the memorial site?
It's over 50 acres. There's some
50.
wooded land that's not developed. So the actual memorial site that you would tour if you came is a little bit smaller than that. But it is much larger than a lot of people realize. They see the arch that you've seen in the pictures, the Overlord Arch. They see that from the road and assume, that's nice. There's an arch, but when they get up here, they see, the full extent of it. There's a lot of symbolism, a lot of plaques, tributes to individuals and to units, and so I say you can really spend a lot of time here.
Is it walkable, the whole thing?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
We have the option for wheelchairs or cart tours for those.
Okay, they like those. Yeah, okay. They have
But
those trams, the little trains, little trams that drive around with people on them, or just
sort
like
of like
to
golf
walk?
cart. Yeah, golf carts.
Oh, golf carts. Okay, cool. All right, yeah. Is there an admission?
There's a mission charge. It varies from time to time, and discounts for veterans and for students and such.
Of
So
course.
I would say just
Sure.
check out our webpage dday.org to find out about the admission. We are not far from Poplar Forest, which is a great site, Thomas Jefferson's second home, besides Monticello, and we have joint ticketing with Poplar Forest as well. So a lot of people will come to Bedford and spend half the day here, half the day there, and learn a lot of history.
That's dday.org.
dday.org. Absolutely.
Let me ask you a question. After D-Day, a lot of those paratroopers had those little clickers. Remember those?
I do.
Sounds like they're behind you.
I think those are frogs actually in our pond. Yeah, but the clickers are another great story of D-Day.
That just reminded me of that. Yeah, with the like I don't know what they were, crickets or what.
Yeah, they called them crickets, and they were only used for a short while, and many of the men didn't save them, so they're kind of rare. But
Right.
there are a lot of replicas you probably saw in gift shops in Normandy.
You know something? Wait 1 second. I gotta get one off my shelf.
Okay. There it is. Click once and answer with two. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these are crazy. I got them at a 101st Airborne Division Bastogne reunion.
Sure. And they feature prominently in the movie The Longest Day, which I always recommend.
Yeah, you're right. There you go.
What were they used for?
And these were to signal. What was they doing from the loading of the M1? Went click, 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 click at first, or what was the reason for these?
Well, the idea was in the dark, because they're jumping not long after midnight.
Right.
You hear someone over there in the bushes. Is he friend or foe? Click once, and if he answers with two clicks, then he is a fellow paratrooper.
Right.
Yeah, and in the movie The Longest Day, the two clicks is a German, cocking his rifle. But generally they worked, as much as they could.
Yeah, sure. You needed something to tell who was who.
Sure, absolutely. And they knew they were going to be scattered. So, you're going to have to spend the first hour in France forming up your unit, getting enough men together to achieve
That's amazing. It's behind there. That sound. That was not supposed to be in the show, but it worked its way in the show.
Absolutely. Yeah, guest stars.
Very good. What do we got, Matt? All right. Yeah. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. Any more comments you could tell our audience about the anything you missed or that you wanted to add to? Or?
This Sunday at 10 o'clock, we will be marking the 77th anniversary of D-Day with suitable ceremony. It won't be as big as some of the ones we've done in the past, of course, because of COVID, but we can't ignore June 6th. And so if you happen to be in or near Virginia, come on by Bedford Sunday morning, and we will mark the anniversary and pay tribute to those who are fallen but not forgotten.
That's great. Appreciate that. Well, thank you so much for your information, your knowledge, and your presence here. And hopefully we'll talk to you soon about some things. Any information you can pass on to us, just send it to our website, fallenneverforgotten.com. Appreciate it. And
absolutely.
Thank you very much. And God bless you. And
you.
Welcome home, everybody out there. Amen.
Thank you for being.
Thank you for being on the show. Appreciate it. And good evening.